Buckle up, pretty people, because today's guest is going to take us out of space, literally. Entrepreneur Nicolina Elrick isn't just any adventurer. She holds the jaw-dropping title of being the 95th woman to venture into space. A Singapore resident since 1995, Nicolina carried the nation's flag into space. Nicolina has conquered it all, including beating cancer thrice. Her last battle with cancer ignited a thirst for adventure that started with flying helicopters and ultimately led her into space training. And it's my privilege to welcome my friend, Nicolina Elrick, to Pass the Power.
Thank you, Paige. It's an honor to be here. I'm really grateful for the time.
When you were a child, did you ever dream of becoming an astronaut?
No. See, I was a young girl in Scotland and I looked up towards the stars quite a lot, but nothing, there was no way. We never had a space agency in Scotland. And so, no, it wasn't really within my peripheral. It was only in 2000 when the International Space Station was built and I was watching the Americans and Russians holding hands that kind of inspired me. And I just thought, if there's peace somewhere outside of space, then I want to be part of that somehow.
Well, one of the things I really wanted to talk about at the very beginning is the whole cancer, surviving that, beating it 3 times. Could you tell us how it changed your mindset for life and even for space exploration?
The first time I had it, like a typical girl, I kind of ignored the symptoms, which were heavy bleeding, cervical pain, uncomfortable. I just thought, I was young. I just thought it was like, the natural progress of being a woman. So I ignored it until it got too late. And then when I finally went in for a test, they told me that I had cervical cancer. So it first came up in the 90s. And then the second time was early 2000s. And then I thought, okay, I've got through this. I think it's, it's just part of life. It's part and parcel. It is what it is. And then in 2009, I got really sick again. And I just thought, no, I can't do this. If this is coming back again, it's here for a reason. I'm meant to be dead. I've obviously had my time here. That's it. So I let it get really bad to the point where my friends were noticing I'd lost a significant amount of weight. I was passing out all the time. I was extremely ill. And so they just said, no, and took me to the hospital. And sure enough, they diagnosed me and said, you've got stage 4 cancer. And at that point, I was like, well, that's it. It's my time. I'm done. And thankfully, at the time, my partner then decided, no, we're going to find a way. And so he found these doctors in Germany. And I did this treatment called dendritic cell treatment, which they do not do here yet. I'm hoping they will do at some point. And I'm definitely campaigning for that globally, worldwide, because I truly believe this is a remarkable invention. And so they take your DNA and they reconfigure it. And they reckon that we get our cancer because there's something missing in our DNA structure. Mm-hmm. And that they can actually predict if you're going to get a certain type of cancer. I went into treatment. I was in Germany for several months. And here I am several years later. So touch wood, it seemed to have worked.
Do you think the grit that you kind of gained from these 3 battles, did that help prepare you mentally when you started training to be an astronaut?
I think the grit is more from my childhood because I come from a very impoverished background. My mom was an alcoholic and my father was an absentee. And I think the grit definitely came from that, which gave me the strength to kind of fight through the cancer when it did come. And I didn't just jump in from being a cancer patient to being an astronaut. It was a lot of training in between. I was training to be a helicopter pilot originally.
But the helicopter training was, it was a doctor who was a catalyst for that, right?
Yeah. So the doctor had said to me, you've got to keep your brain mentally active all the time while you're doing cancer treatment. Predominantly for me, I'm an academic, so I would sit down and do things like I'd read all the time, or I'd do mathematical stuff or physics or chemistry. He's like, no, switch it to the other side. Do something that has motor skills or painting or poetry or a language. And for me, I had no inclination whatsoever. But my friend at the time was flying airplanes. And so he'd suggested, why don't you come and fly a plane with me? Because you have to do like several things at once. So I did that. And I thought flying a plane was really boring because we call it flying a plank. You literally go on board and put an autopilot.
Autopilot?
Yeah. And I was like, I don't want to sit in autopilot. Literally in my life, I did not want to sit in autopilot. And so I looked across the runway and I saw a helicopter taking off and I went, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. And so I literally turned on to the pilot and my friend and I said, do you know those guys? Can you introduce me? And they did. And the rest is history.
So you faced some really tough moments. So what is the kind of the mindset shift that you think everyone should adopt in order to not give up during those horrible, horrible times?
Well, there's definitely a catalyst to it, but there's no one specific moment. I mean, I remember the first week I started treatment, because it was so new back then, they were still struggling to work out how much to give me and how much not to give me. And of course, they're giving me a little bit too much. And I was going through a lot of pain in the treatment. I mean, I literally was doubled over in beds, howling in pain, and they were giving me drugs to calm me down. And I just thought, oh, I can't do this anymore. And then a little part of me was like, well, if I'm in this much pain and I'm getting through this, there must be a reason. And there must be a reason that I'm pushing through this. And there must be a reason that I'm here. And I kind of had to just sit and self-evaluate and say, well, what is it that I need to be doing? What can I do? And I just, I sat and I thought, you think about your life. When you come to what you think is going to be the end, you quickly look back and you think, well, hold on a second. I've got to be a better person. I got to be I want to be somebody that can motivate the younger generation. I don't want to be this person who just gives up hope and just packs it all in. And I have a daughter, and I wanted to be that parent who wants to inspire her. I don't want to be the person who throws in the towel and says, oh, I can't do this. It's too hard. I wanted to be I am going to get through this. Yeah. I want to prove to her that mommy can do anything. I want to prove that women can do anything.
Well, for the listeners out there, we are personal friends, and I've only known Nicolina to be strong and a fighter. And this notion that there was this moment where you were like, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to fight this anymore. I can't even imagine you were there.
I was seriously depressed. I mean, I was crying. I would wake up in pain. I would be in tears all the time. I isolated myself from my friendships because I was just I don't want to spiral and bring them all down with me. But there was a few really strong, good friends who kind of stuck by and kind of just hung in there and kind of helped me. And I think that was really important too. I think surround yourself with people who are just willing to stick it out with you, because it's not an easy ride.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing on the personal front. And
thank you.
I'd love to talk a little bit more about the space exploration now. And I think space school must have been full of surprises. So what was the most unexpected thing you learned? The thing that you never thought you'd need to know?
Certainly to be more patient and to listen. I think I've always done that in business, but when you're trapped in a capsule with just the 6 of you, you have to be very clear of what your instructions are. You have to be very succinct of what you're saying. And I think that was kind of a real wake-up call for me. That was kind of okay, I need to do this. If they're telling me to do it, I can't be oh, no, I can do it better. I have to be okay, I'll do this.
Well, one of the things we were talking about, facial features, and you were saying that when you actually go into space, yes. I mean, I think this is interesting. I never would have thought about it. But when you go into space, you can't do filler and all this kind of stuff.
No, exactly. So when you're going up, well, my launch particularly, when we went up on my launch, we went up Mach 3, which is 4,000 kilometers an hour. So you're pinned in your seat. And as you're going up, your face kind of contorts this way. And so, it's like an elephant sitting on you, but it's including your face and all your features. So all astronauts are guided not to have anything done prior to launch because no one knows what's going to happen. They haven't, all this fillers and Botox and everything is such a new revolution in everyone's face. And most people who are doing stuff aren't that vain. Most people are just getting on with what they're doing in science and technology, and having to look pretty doing it is never usually the biggest thing in the forefront. And so I think that it's more of a fear factor that they're worried of what might happen. But yeah, I did a lot of laser treatments instead of filling my face with anything.
Okay, so when you're talking about vain, a lot of people dismiss the private space travel because they see it as kind of a rich person's playground.
Billionaire boy club.
Yes, and soon to be billionaire girl club.
Yeah, we're kicking that one.
So how do you respond to these skeptics?
I use the same analogy most of the time. I just feel, you look back in the 1920s when aircraft was coming out, the Wright brothers were doing it, and then commercial airspace came up. And people kept saying, you got to be crazy, you've got to be like the super rich billionaires. But look at us all now. We're all flying. I mean, we're heading off in all these different journeys. We're visiting different people around the world. People are traveling for work. And I think the evolution of the airplane is exactly what's going to happen with space rockets. Yeah, it might be the people who are super rich initially, but they're creating a pathway for everyone else to explore. And I think that's really important. If we don't have people with the money throwing their money at it first, the governments are just not rich enough to do it. And we need somebody to be doing it. By nature, we're explorers. We need to be out there.
That's a very good answer. Can we talk a little bit about real space? Because some people say these journeys that are 50 miles out into space aren't really going to space. Are you really an astronaut if you've only
So this is a bone
that?
of contention initially. So Virgin Galactic go up to 80 kilometers off sea level. Blue Origin goes 103 to 105, minus 105 kilometers off sea level. SpaceX goes up to, well, depending on what your mission is and your goals are. And you compare to the International Space Station, which is 119. So they're trying to define now that you're only fully technically an astronaut if you do an orbit around the Earth. But currently, as it stands, FAA give you your wings and tell you you're officially an astronaut if you go past the Karma line, which has become a bone of contention with Virgin Galactic because none of them go through the Karma line. So they have been given their wings too, but there's still a little bit of friction. But then you sit down with all the actual government-trained astronauts, they're embracing everybody who's commercially doing it. Because when you finish being an astronaut and you've come back from ISS, very rarely you get a second mission. Then what? What do you do? They become consultants for these commercial aerospace agencies. So without the commercial aerospace agencies, these retired astronauts would be sitting twiddling their thumbs or teaching at school, which is great and really important. But I think it's really good that all of us are expanding this. So I think it's more the haters. I mean, you're going to have keyboard warriors in every situation. And it just tends to be a little bit of people who are jealous that someone else got to do it first.
And how long is the space training to go up? Like for your mission?
It really depends. I mean, for me, I've been training for 15 years. I was more than overqualified for Blue Origin, hence where they gave me my position. But you don't have to do anything. You can just buy a ticket, rock up on the day, and they give you 3 days training prior to launch, and you can fly up.
3 days?
3 days.
So you just have to have the money.
You just have to have the money. And it depends on how much you want to get involved in it. For me, I live, breathe, and sleep space. Right. So I wanted to do all of it. I mean, the idea of getting on a space rocket and not being prepared scared me. I wanted to be fully prepared in every aspect and every peripheral. But some people don't. Some people, for them, it's like, I just want to go up there and try it. I want to see if they're doing the right thing. And why not? They're the ones creating the space and giving the money for the other people who they can sponsor to then go in there too.
So what about your journey from Virgin Galactic to Blue Origin and now we hope SpaceX in 2027?
I'm rolling from one to another. Yeah. It wasn't my initial choice. Like I didn't sit down and say, this is what I'm going to do. I bought a ticket with Virgin Galactic. And from there, I mean, they're just unfortunately not launching at the moment. Everything's on hold. And so when we realized a long time ago that that was going to be a little bit of a delay, I was then introduced to some other people at Blue Origin. So I was working with a couple of people there and a different project in business side. And I would never forget the call. I get this phone call and a Zoom call when I was sitting in London in June in 2000. They said, we just run a couple of things by you. So what are you doing in October? I'm like, what do you mean, what am I doing in October? They're just like, well, someone dropped out of the shuttle and we kind of need another person and we know that you're fully trained. Would you like to do it? And I'm just like, what? Anyway, so because of that, I heard years later, it was through the grapevine that I'd been recommended through the team at Galactic and through all the people I'd been training with. And they all had to nominate a person. And between all of them, they were just like, we think she's a good candidate for this. And so I love how Blue pick and choose who's on each shuttle. It's not a case of everybody just rocks up and throws money at something. Virgin Galactic are very open about their financials. When I bought a ticket, it was, you know, if I'm going to be very crass, it was $250,000 when I bought it. Now it's $600,000.
Right.
Blue Origin never discussed. You can Google till your fingers go red and you will never find how much.
So how many were on your crew?
There's always 6. Everybody pays, but it depends where the funds come from. So they were either paid by government agency, personal pocket, sponsorship from, there was one girl in the last launch, a university and a city actually paid because they wanted to have someone from their town. So they contributed towards her launch.
And you're hopeful that you're going to be on the SpaceX mission?
Yeah.
Which is a week long?
I'm currently negotiating with them. So it's a week-long mission, but it depends what mission it is. So it goes higher than the International Space Station. It does orbits around the Earth, or I can do even further up.
So in this realm of Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin and SpaceX, you have like 3 very strong personalities of Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos, and then Elon Musk. So is there any, I mean, can you give us some tea? Can you give us like some jaw-dropping, over-the-top kind of...
Oh, you want me to dish the dirt on them all?
Not dirt, but is there anything that you would be like, oh my gosh, you would not believe what Richard did or like what Jeff said?
No, because most of us have to sign NDAs when you have meetings with them. So there's some crazy wild parties and a lot of fun. And people who like to do high adrenaline things tend to have a lot of fun too. They know how to balance like the seriousness with some playfulness.
What's the one attribute the 3 of them share?
Oh my God, all 3 of them are so ambitious and so incredibly driven. I would say that's the one thing. They're all smart, but in different ways. I mean, I think Richard's more street smart than he is academically smart because, you know, he talks about having dyslexia. So for him, it was a challenge. Elon, again, dropped out of school, but incredibly smart and very driven. And Jeff is just a genius. I mean, the way he thinks about everything. I mean, my nickname for him is Secret Squirrel. I mean, he's got like 50 different projects on the go that are just about to be phenomenal. And it's just all these great things are really happening. And I think the one key factor between them all is perseverance and to not give up.
Well, Elon, I feel like he has some pretty polarizing views on space exploration because he talks about how the fact that the Earth's going to be hit by a comet and we need to be a spacefaring.
I haven't heard about that. I mean, he definitely believes about the spacefaring and the mission to Mars.
But he's much more about that than about worried about climate change and cleaning up Earth.
You know, sometimes we have to choose our battles and work hard at them rather than not mastering any of them. And I think that's mainly what it is. It's not like he doesn't care. I can't speak on his behalf.
Right.
I think that because his main focus is so loud, the other things seem to be quiet in the background. But they are there. They're in the burner. But I just think he's choosing a pathway that he knows about, he's experienced about, and is taking control of.
Yeah. Well, he says that he's going to have a crewed Mars mission by 2028.
I think that's... Gwen will kill me. So Gwen Shotwell is the head of SpaceX. I love her. I mean, oh my God, these women in power are definitely where we're all going. I mean, these are, if you look at all of Elon's companies, they're all run by women. He's the front man, but all the CEOs are women in power. And because of that, I think they're being extremely ambitious on their dateline on it, but it will happen. It will definitely happen within the next 10 years.
Maybe not 28. But then he also says that we're going to have self-sustaining colonies in the next 2 decades. I mean, I don't know. When I hear this, it just sounds like...
But if you look at a timeline, look how revolutionary the iPhone was. iPhone only came out 10 years ago. So look at the evolution of how everything is happening and the supersonic speed is going. So to say that that's going to happen in 20 years, I think it's a possibility. You never know.
If you had a chance to do the Mars mission?
I'm already signed up.
You're signed up?
I'm already signed up. I'm signed up for everything. I'm like, I get a phone call, Nikki, would you want to do Jupiter? Yes. Nikki, do you want to do Mars? Yes. Nikki, do you want to do the moon? 100%. Hell yeah.
Okay. Is there anything you say no to?
Yeah. Certain individuals I won't work with.
Oh.
Yeah. And you have to be really careful who your crew are because you're stuck in a capsule for a long time with those people. So when you train with certain people, you kind of realize those who are in it for the glory and those who are really in it for the right reasons. And for me, my team has to be the right reasons. I mean, our launch when we did Blue Origin was a humanitarian launch. You know, we had a Muslim and a Jew sit down together in space and hug, you know, while war was kicking off down on the ground. And we had the youngest woman ever to go to space who was in our shuttle.
How's it a humanitarian mission?
Because it's to empower other people. She runs a whole community of empowerment. I mean, she talks at schools already, and she's only 21, and she's walking around the world talking about how everybody should be doing something that resonates with them and creates a pathway to make the world a better place.
So I'd like to talk a little bit on your advocacy. And I know that, I mean, you survived cancer, you touched the edge of space. So what's the message you want people to take away from your journey?
That you can literally touch the skies, no matter where you come from or how traumatized you are, or the trauma and drama and just horrible things that you can encounter in life. There is still a shining light out there. Those stars twinkle bright and there's an opportunity to reach for them. I'm a walking example of that. We need to break the mold of what men and women should be doing. And I think I'm trying to be an advocate that women can do anything they want to do. It's just having that perseverance to do it. It's just having a tenacity and the drive to want to do it and making sure they can go ahead.
I hear you, but I think sometimes, I don't know, it's really, really hard sometimes to open the door.
I think it's really important to be as outspoken and a little bit controversial. I have to say this sometimes. I don't do things by the rules that I should be doing, but I think that's important too.
Do you have any sort of mantra? Like, I feel like for me, I'm always like, keep on keeping on.
Right.
And also this too shall pass. Because those two, no matter what's happening in life, are able to get me to a better place. But is there something that you kind of...
Well, Richard Branson had the mantra, fuck it, just do it, which I have to say I kind of liked. I lived in such a place of worry and I was so scared what people would think of me. And I was just so traumatized by everything constantly. And I was living in a place of shame and I was just like, shake it off. You know, in the morning, I'm just like, I wake up and I'm like, shake it off. 10 things I'm grateful for.
Say these 10 things I'm grateful for?
Yeah.
You do that daily?
I do. Every single day. I found that really helps me. I've tried to
write it down or it's mental?
It depends. It depends. Sometimes I'll be saying it in the car when I'm driving to a meeting or something when I haven't had time in the morning to sit and write it. If I have time, then I'll sit down. I mean, ideally, I want to sit down in the sunshine, enjoy a quiet moment with my nice cup of tea, but we don't always have that privilege to do that. So if I'm driving somewhere, I'll be like, take a breath. Okay, 10 things. I'm really grateful that, the green light happened at the right time. I'm really grateful I'm going to make my meeting in time. It can be the simplest little things. I'm really grateful it didn't rain and I'm wearing sandals. Or it can be huge things like I'm really grateful I got to go to space. I think being humble and reminding ourselves how lucky we are, I ingrain that in my brain constantly.
Yeah. Well, as you know, Jim and I drove around the world, visited 116 countries, and seeing the status of women in the world, or the lack of status, the lack of freedom of movement, the lack of passport, just the way so many, most women live. That's one of the things that I am grateful for every day, is that I am able to live in a place where, as a woman, I am seen as an equal. And I have, my voice, and I'm not silenced. So, yeah, I definitely think that we have to be grateful. And it doesn't have to be for something huge.
But that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, we have clean water out of a tap. I mean, how lucky are we to have that? And we just take it for granted. And it's about stopping that whole taking everything for granted mentality.
In Africa, I can't tell you how many women I saw walking to get water and balancing the pots on their heads to come back. And then they have to clean it. And we live a pretty good life here in Singapore.
Absolutely.
And speaking of good life, I love your title, Grit, Diamond, Stars, for your book.
So my book has 3 main characters in it. We basically go through my trauma as a child and all the things that happened to me in the social services in the UK. So I got given up for adoption when I was really young, and I bounced from foster care. So
How young?
6.
6.
6, something happened to me that's quite traumatic that comes out at the end of the book. And then we work out why my parents gave me up, because they couldn't deal with the trauma. And so they just kind of went, we can't deal with this, and kind of pushed it away. And I bounced around homes after that. And then all through my life, I never understood why. And I ended up in 3 big relationships that had these really bad patterns that for me, it was like, okay, well, I'll just be in this relationship because, he's suitable for this. But then I realized it was a pattern through my life, and I had to break that mold. And so in between, when I was writing the book, the publisher turned around to me and said, Nicolina, we love your story, but we don't sell books when you cry the whole way through. We're going to have to give you a ghostwriter to rewrite this. And I went, great. And so they rewrote it in such a beautiful way that the interim brings, like, you're suddenly in this really dark place, and then suddenly I'm in the stars and something about space training. And it's so beautiful, roller coaster ride all the way through.
What are the surprises in the book, or you can't tell us? Or can you tell us one?
It's just the twists and turns about people who've known me for like the last 30 years, and they've read it, because a couple of people have had a copy of it now, have read it, are just so shocked. Because they thought they knew me so well. They're just like, oh, we know you. We know, we've known Nicolina. We hang out with her all the time. She's slightly crazy. She does her thing. She's like, whatever. But then when they read it, there's a lot of stuff that I was too embarrassed to talk about, or felt like I was living in a place of shame. And it all kind of comes up through the book. And everyone's kind of a little bit shell-shocked by it. You have to read the book to see it.
Yeah, it's so interesting when you talk about a place of shame, because so many podcasts that I've listened to lately talk about that, and how we all live with some sort of shame, that most of us, instead of dealing with it or using it to educate others so that perhaps they don't have to feel the guilt over it, we just kind of push it away. We have the shame, and it brings us down.
And the shame usually isn't, like, it's something that's inflicted upon us and not even our own fault. And so that just becomes this innate untold story that's just unnecessary. And so many people live with that. And to break it and turn it around and make it into a positive attribute is really challenging. But I think the more people talk about things, the more it comes out, the more comfortable people are about talking about it, then no one has to live like that anymore.
One of the things that I'm grateful for is that I have so many younger friends who have been very successful in their careers, and as a result have waited quite a while to try to have children. And so they weren't able to get pregnant. And so, but IVF, when I was having babies, I mean, it was something that you didn't talk about.
Right.
You know what I mean? And now I think it's so good that people can say, I had a difficult time and I'm able to do IVF. At least when they're able to share, they're able to get some comfort, I would suppose.
Yep.
So you've been in Singapore since 1995.
Yeah.
I wonder, can you tell us your go-to spots for food, for booze, and for shopping?
Well, so this is a challenge, because unfortunately for me, because there's not many places to launch to space from in Singapore. So I tend to spend a lot of time traveling, and I tend to work with all the space agencies because I consult with them. And so I tend to be overseas a lot. So when I'm back, I much prefer when a friend says, come around and I'll cook for you. And for me, that's my go-to spot. It's like my friend says, just come and hang. Even if me just hanging out with them, eating a pizza and watching TV, I don't get to do that when I'm in a hotel room. You know, it's kind of like you sit down at dinners and it's really hard and it's challenging. So for me, when I come home, I don't have a particular spot. I mean, I love local food. I mean, there's no question.
When you're talking about lonely and being in the hotel room, it strikes me that your life it's fairly nomadic because you are doing the space travel and the space training and all that. And your daughter is older now. Do you not think about, I'd love to find a partner? I mean...
Oh, yeah. I mean, but I feel like I've sacrificed a lot of my life because of what I'm doing.
Right.
I mean, I was in a relationship with someone that was really toxic and that really hurt. And and it took a long time to disentangle from that and took a step back and thought, you know what? I'm going to pivot and focus on my career. I want to keep doing what I'm doing. And it's hard. Like if I do go on a SpaceX mission in the Dragonflyer for a week, I need a guy who's like secure enough and smart enough and concrete in himself to be like, I'm so proud of you, Nick. Please go ahead and do that. Rather than, oh, well, that's a risk for me. I mean, I met someone the other day and he was just like, well, if you're doing that, it's kind of cool to have an astronaut girlfriend, but actually it's not cool because it's going to piss me off if you're in space. And I'm like, sure.
Thank you, next.
Yeah, exactly.
When you look back at your mission, was there kind of a single moment where your breath was just taken away and you thought, this is why I'm here?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So for me, thankfully, my daughter is amazing. I have a, incredible, incredible woman. And she's extremely mature for her age. And she was my plus one. And so when she was there the whole time, thankfully...
When she was your plus one, what does that mean?
So when we were in training, we go into quarantine.
Okay.
And so you're allowed to bring a partner. Usually people bring their husband or some of us brought kid. I brought my daughter with me because I just wanted that emotional support. But, it's a challenge for them too. You don't realize how challenging it is. And I think for me, pivotal moment was like seeing her do an interview with someone else saying, I'm so proud of my mommy doing this. It was like, okay, I've finally done something right. For me, it was like a checkbox of being a parent. It was like, okay, she's proud of me. And I've always wanted to have someone that I really care about to tell me that. And it just has never happened. So it was like, wow, I've done that. And especially when I was on the shuttle too, there's a moment when you're flying up, you're looking out the window with one eye, you're looking at the monitor with the other, your crew's next to you. And I'm looking out and I'm thinking the Earth's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And you see the fragility of all. And I was just like, and it literally was like, whoa, this is it. This is everything I worked for. And I was like smacked against the window looking outside going, I need more of this. This is it. Yeah, for sure. That was the moment I just realized all my dreams had come true. And I just wanted more of it.
That's amazing. I wonder if the second mission will have that same moment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because it's going to be bigger and better. And it depends. It might not be with SpaceX. I mean, I'm negotiating with another company at the moment. So it might be with someone else, but it will be longer in space. We're already starting to work out who my crew will be, what the mission goals will be.
Well, one of the things we talked about before we went on camera was you were telling me that there are many different companies. I mean, I know the three.
Oh,
so
yeah.
So how many companies are doing this kind of commercial space travel?
There's a lot now. So everybody wants to get into it. I mean, there's an amazing company. Oh my God, there's just a super amazing company called Rocket Lab. They originally were from New Zealand. Peter Beck, who runs that, he's phenomenal. And there is Vast, big shout out to Max, who I spoke to this morning. So they're doing a whole new thing, which is the new International Space Station. So the International Space Station, as we all know and love, has been an incredible mission and goal for the last 24 years, but it's being dismantled and pulled back down to Earth. So all these other space stations have to go up. So we already have China up there, Russia's building their own one, everyone's having their independent one, but there's a company called Vast that's building a space station for everybody. So it becomes like all government agencies can go on there. So it's basically the new space station. So they're in talks with everybody to try and get people up there.
And where are they based?
Most of them are in America.
Yes.
So everybody launches from America.
So when you look at all the countries, who's ahead? Is China ahead? Russia ahead? Is Elon ahead?
It depends when you classes what ahead is.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of further and more manpower and more revolutionary, Chinese Space Agency for sure. For sure. They're already on the moon doing
Do you speak
stuff.
Mandarin? They wouldn't send up a Scottish woman who has Singapore residency.
Yeah, but it's a tough call because of everything that's happening between China and America. It's like, the space agencies shouldn't have to choose. They shouldn't have to be like, I'll work with it, because China's setting up their own commercial aerospace agency now too.
So I feel like we've had a really interesting discussion. And I wonder if there's anything about your personal history or your space exploration, anything that we haven't covered that you think is really important to get out there to the audience.
I just think it's really important for young girls to understand that there is hope. For me, that's the really important thing. Like, I'm hearing in the news all these horrible things that are coming out about these young women that just, and they're going to be going through an emotional devastation. They're going to be going through a place of shame. They're going to be going through all that trauma. And I want them to always reach up and realize they're going to get out of this. Mm-hmm. There is a way out. I don't want them to feel that they're going to spiral. I don't want it to manifest into ill health. I don't want them to see it as being a place of darkness. I want them to see this is an open door of light, that they have some sort of way to get out. It's important. Mm-hmm.
I feel like your story literally tells us that we should reach for the stars no matter the obstacles.
Thank you.
And I appreciate so much your sharing your incredible journey.
Thank you.
And your resilience and even your vision with us. And to the listeners, I would love to say thank you so much for passing the power again with me, Paige Parker. And we will continue to do this one episode at a time.
Thank you. It's been a delight being here. Thank you so much, babe.